Good evening everybody, welcome to the studio tonight. And on tonight's show we're doing some pyrography. But I am going to get things out of the way for the moment. I'm going to change one of the tips on my pen, this one, because I don't particularly I haven't fallen out, I've just not got used to this particular tip. So I'm going to change it and actually try a different one. This one doesn't, it seems to heat a bit asymmetric. Now let me pick that up because I do not want to damage it. Requires me to find it first. Bear with me a second. Although I don't particularly like this tip, I don't want to lose or damage it. It's £7 worth of tip. So we shall just tuck that into one of these little tiny bags here. We'll keep it reasonably safe. And I'm actually going to try one of these other shaders out. So I just need to cut open the bag. And then we'll see how a different shader works. Maybe I'll get on with this one a little bit better. I want a wider one than I'm currently using if I can get one. Because the wider ones of course work faster. Well, potential to work faster because of course they're wider. So it doesn't matter which way these are connected up. At all. Just spread the pins a little bit to get them in. And I'm just going to hold that in place while I tighten these up. Ideally I want to get them as tight as I can. I don't really want to, go absolutely silly wrenching these around, but I do want them to make a really good contact because the flow of electricity. Don't want resistance in these connectors here. I will get some, but I don't really want it because resistance generates heat and loses power. So if I'm generating heat in these, I'm not generating it in the tip. Now then, they're a little bit close together, so I'm just separate them a little bit. Right. To borrow a line from Ghostbusters, let's heat them up and let's see what happens. So I'm going to just let it heat up. It'll smoke slightly because they use oil when they stamp these flat, and I'm assuming just general sort of oils on the metal. So I just smoked off a little bit. Let's put a light on here. I don't need just yet, but that's the oil that just burnt off on the bottom. And I've just got a bit of board here. So I am just going to see. Okay. See what this tip feels like. Interesting. So I have to be careful when I first put it down. It does seem to hold quite a bit of heat. but it does look like I'm going to get quite a nice smooth surface because of the shape of it being long, pointy long, rather than wide long. Just suits my the way I work a little bit better. So let me just switch that off for a second and get rid of that board. That, incidentally, if you've not seen it before, is a practice piece that I'm working on. So that was just the back of it, but this is just a practice piece of a UK diesel electric locomotive. And I'm going to get myself a drink of tea. I've got a sort of a catch in my throat at the moment which won't go away. We tilt this a little bit that way because I'm a bit off centre of frame, and we are now going to continue this background. Need to darken above the top of the ear here because it doesn't stand out too much. As you can only just see it, so I want to be a little bit darker just across the top, which suits what I'm trying to do in terms of the background shading, so that's okay. And I need to take it up here, and I still need to do some work on that ear, for which I need my reference pictures. Yeah, it's just a grey, fairly light grey. Okay, well that's going to depend on the actual colours around it. So we shall get on. I could do with not tipping this up for a while, so I shall just move that out of the way. Well, the tip runs smooth. I've had tips in the past where I've had to just file the edges because the way they were stamped meant the bottom had like a little rough burr on it, which would catch the wood when you were working on it, which wasn't great. Easy enough to fix, but this one's nice and smooth. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to just how to use this. It doesn't quite run the same as the other large one, and it again also doesn't run quite the same as the small shader. I think I'll do is use a small shader to come in just around the ear. I'll use this to do the larger spaces. And so far I'm liking this a lot better than I liked its wider cousin I was using yesterday. Of course, that's no guarantee I'm going to continue to like it. And it may well just be different. I like different tools when I'm in different moods, because sometimes you need whilst I don't think I use a lot of patience on this, I do need more patience for certain things. Okay, let me switch tools for the moment to the smaller shader. Turn the temperature down. I want to come in alongside the ear here and outline the ear with this because I can get, at least at the moment, I'm more used to this than I am the one I've just been using, and therefore I can get in the detail sort of areas a little bit better. And as I get towards this side of the picture, I'm getting further away from the sun. The sun's at the right hand side, so if this area ends up being darker than I intended, that's not really a problem. I'd like it to be reasonably light here, so this dark, really dark area is just coming up slightly, and this medium dark area comes across the top. But sometimes you don't always get what you want in terms of this. The wood, well, I'll say sometimes the wood has its own mind. It doesn't. You know, it's purely down to me and how I interact with the wood, but it sometimes just feels like it's doing it on purpose, just to be awkward. And of course it isn't, but that's just kind of lack of patience on my part, perhaps. Okay, and if I look at the stream window, I can see that's not bad. It's not bad. May darken it a little bit. For the moment, that's not bad. At least in this area here. I need to add some more colour around this area before I can see what this bit looks like. But that here now stands out a lot better than it did before, which is what I'm after. So we now go back to my new tool. I kind of could say my new toy, but it's not. I've had it for quite some time, a few years. I just never got it out of its packet. Right, let me turn that up a bit because a larger tool needs more heat. It's now back to filling in the space. Okay, and usually for this wood, the areas of grey and the rings are actually colouring a bit faster than the area between. Now, whether that's a problem to you when you're doing this sort of art is variable. Now, it is a natural wood product that's being having pyrography applied to it, so there are variations, and often that's part of the artwork is the wood, the natural wood shapes and patterns. But sometimes you want to minimise that. You want a smoother colour as possible. It is something that you always need to bear in mind doing this, that sometimes a bit of wood, wherever it is, will just suddenly take a bit more colour than you expected, and you've then got to deal with it and work around it if it's a problem. I will say to anybody watching who says anything in chat, which you're quite welcome to do so if you want to ask any questions or offer anything constructive, then it may be a little bit before I see it. As you can see, I'm looking down, so I can sort of see chat out the corner of my eye, so sometimes when it scrolls I can see it, but I may not, so just bear with me if I don't read chat messages straight away. Now then, that got me more colour than I was intending. Now the contrast around the trunk here with the background is quite low. So if I want that trunk to stand out, I'm probably gonna either darken the background or darken the foreground. I'll probably darken the foreground. Now I haven't quite decided what to do about the rest of the sky. I've got two options really. One is to leave the wood as it is, and the second one is to just go over with a very light colour. The disadvantage of going over with a light colour is it takes time to do. The advantage of doing it is it irons the wood. This wood here is, I won't say it's rough, but it has a texture. Even a very lightly coloured pyrographic pyrographic area, the wood's smooth and a little bit shiny. So you've got a slight difference in texture. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not sure yet. So that may be something I will have to consider. Now then, putting this card's warming up a bit. Generally speaking, if a card's warming up a bit, it means that one of the connectors is not quite as well connected as it might. Now, when I've been floating around in the air with this for a while, like when I'm talking out to you guys, when I put it down I have to be very careful I don't get a burn mark. Generally speaking, what I've got to do is brush it on the wood quite quickly. That'll cool it down. I can blow on it as well, but that will cool it down enough so that I can then slow down without causing that burn mark. Theme Hospital, good evening. Welcome to the studio this evening. Nice to see you again. How are you doing today? I think you said you were doing fine in Eddie's chat earlier today, but I didn't join in. I was, as usual, at work, so it was just playing in the background whilst I was getting on with some other stuff. I'm trying out a new tool tonight. Right at the start of this stream I changed out the tip from yesterday, the wide tip, for this longer but narrower tip that I've got here, and so far this one, it seems to be a bit better behaved in what it's doing. So I may well keep this one. Not that I'm going to do anything with the other one. I'm not throwing it away or anything. It's just back in its bag. Maybe I just need some more expertise in using it. So we may come back to that other tip at some point in the future. Graya, hello, good evening, welcome to the studio. Thank you very much, Theme Hospital. Now I'm probably going to need the tilt back under this because it's I'm now working in an area where I'm getting glare. It's also a really warm day in the UK today. Or perhaps not necessarily warm, but humid. Apparently it was 17 degrees outside, which doesn't sound really warm, but when the humidity is up, it does feel sort of a lot hotter. We're 25 degrees in the studio tonight, and I've had windows open all day. So let's just turn that down and switch to this tool here, because I'm just going to do over the head. And this tool will I'm more practice with this, so I can get in closer to the line that I want, rather than trying to use the new tool that I've not much experience of. Okay, so I've just outlined there. Yeah, I was thinking about that as well. A couple of them were going, as you know, a couple of them were going on about Twitch terms and conditions, and of course, quite clearly they hadn't read it because of all, they were intending to be offensive and things like that, which of course is what the Twitch rules say you shouldn't be. But whoever sent them, of course, also broke Twitch rules, because there's terms and conditions in there, and rules about raiding, shall we say, other channels, and how they should not do so without permission. Nobody has permission. Anyway, they just got banned, so they can't do it again. So it'll happen, can't do anything about it. They're just a click to be gone, so I'm more bothered by Twitch or whatever it is disconnecting me, so that's more of a concern than people coming in that you might prefer didn't. Oh, okay. Well, you see, I'm not up on these things. Having no interest in doing that sort of thing, then don't know how they go about doing it. Isn't it weird what some people find fun? You know what? I'm turning the heat up because this isn't colouring very well. And I've just turned it up twice because it wasn't colouring very well. In fact, it wasn't colouring at all. And I've just realised I've still got it switched to my other pen. Yeah. Okay. Well. Then you get some people wondering why, you know, there's well, why people don't want to stream. You know, people in Twitch, Twitch who want to encourage people to stream and then do nothing about things like that. As I say, I was more worried about being disconnected. I think at least one of them last night was probably my ADSL router. It looked like it disassociated everything last night for around one of the times, but only one of them was in the log, so I may have been a little bit unfair to Twitch on one occasion. It actually didn't push the viewer count up that much. There were just well, I don't know. I didn't actually look at how many I banned last night, but it wasn't actually that many. Because Twitch stats are a little bit weird. Theme Graya, actually both of you stream, don't you? So you probably have seen the stats. They measure things in like 20s and stuff like that. Dear, which made so the few that came in didn't actually make that much difference, unfortunately. Anyway, we're working on the background of this. Okay, that looks like it wants to be a bit darker. It does look like I need some sort of texturing, colouring on there, on the head. I don't know, to be honest. There, it don't actually strike me as it's not big data. Well, I was going to say it's not big data stuff. It's it's basically most of the stats they collect when you connect to a channel and you play the video. That's most of the, or in fact, looking at it, almost all of them are based on that, and when you disconnect or when you stop taking the stream, which means it's a TCP connection. But anyway, so when you start and when you stop, and that's two pieces of information basically from every viewer, and that's not a great deal. I mean, even if they've got 500,000 viewers and they all reconnect every second, that's only a million pieces of information and a second, and that ain't a great deal. And I'm totally exaggerating there, but if you get a restart, that's maybe what they get. But some of the stuff that I do at work would exceed that sort of stuff without even trying. So it's just down to Twitch design. And sometimes, obviously, sometimes it seems obvious that their reporting systems just stop, because you get things like, I've got quite a few of the past few months. I've been talking to you guys all night, so I know you're in the stream, and it'll say I've had no viewers. You go, well, okay, but it'll tell me that you guys have watched 15 hours of video, and it's kind of like, how can 0 viewers have watched 15 hours of video? So they've got glitches in there, but the one I actually find very odd is the follows one. I cannot work out how that statistic works at all. It just does not make sense. Yeah, but he didn't. You saw at max 27 to 30. Yeah, and yet it didn't actually reflect that in the stats. It didn't even push it up above the next boundary. What did I do? I work for a telecommunications firm, and I deal with sales type statistics and financial data. Analysis of said data mainly, generally with databases and data crunching and data analysis software, but sometimes just dirty great big spreadsheets. Sort of 3 million row spreadsheets are not uncommon. So it's and I can process that sort of stuff with a spreadsheet. So the big engines that Twitch ought to be using for the stats, because they must do some form of dimensioning and system design, trends and things to know when to add machines and things. I wouldn't have thought it'd be that hard for them, but yeah. So anyway. Back to background. Were you streaming with Creams earlier today? I noticed she was streaming ETS multiplayer, because I saw Steve was hosting. That's going up over there, so that wants to actually be higher. I got home from work tonight completely full of the intention to do things like install Chatty and one or two other bits and pieces, and sat down, started watching YouTube videos. I'm a bit behind and didn't do anything of what I intended. I managed to find time to have my tea, and then it was 10 to 8 and time to start a stream. Fortunately, it doesn't look like I'm going to get a chance to stream tomorrow afternoon. Looks like I'm going to be out all day doing some important stuff for the new studio, but we should be on again tomorrow. Well, we will be on again tomorrow night, barring any disasters like power cuts or things like that. There wasn't very many to count, was there? I didn't watch, to be honest. Yeah. It was after AD stopped. Was it after AD stopped, or was it earlier on tonight? I can't remember when I saw it. Oh, never mind. Memory. Terrible memory. So what I'm going to do is just darken around that edge there. Don't normally outline things, don't like outlining things. It does work for some artists, outlining stuff. Doesn't kind of work for me. That probably means I need more practice of it. It's a slightly different form of art, but it can actually work quite well. But whenever I do it, it doesn't quite look natural. I was watching Sheen Buick actually yesterday doing a Japanese piece, and it was not quite in real time, but it was, I think, twice normal speed, and she was doing a technique where she did an outline and then coloured in, and it looked quite good. Actually, I'm trying to think, it probably looks more like a book, you know, the book style of things that you see illustrations in books. That thought just crossed my mind there, and that's maybe why it didn't look too bad. And if I just narrow that down a little bit there, I can then darken this off a little bit, I think. That makes it stand out a bit better. 25. Okay, so what kind of things count as a cock-up then? Because I'm kind of wondering what sort of count I'd get, and yeah. If it's a high count, maybe I never want to stream ETS2. I'm not actually a great driver on ETS2. I'm not bad, I don't crash that often, and I kind of like to play it, shall I say, as it's meant to be played. So I don't really go absolutely stupid or anything in it. Occasionally you'll do the thing where, of course, you're trying to just squeeze a little bit more time, or get there just before you're forced to sleep or something like that, and be speeding like mad, or you'll get the usual truck or something on a really winding road that's slowed right down. Mountain curb, off-roading. It's kind of hard to off-road in ETS2 though, isn't it? Because there's invisible walls and barriers everywhere. Going the wrong way round and turning round on a motorway. Hard to go the wrong way on a motor. Well, well, obviously it's not. But I just thought it was quite hard to go the wrong way on a motorway. And half the time you can't find somewhere to turn around on a motorway. I've seen Steve do it a couple of times where he's managed to find a gap in the central barriers, but whenever I've needed to, I've gone too far or something. I never find that. I always have to come off. And then invariably you pick the exit where you can't just come around and go back straight on. It goes, 10 miles somewhere else before you can turn around. And of course at that point you're usually low on fuel or something. I'm quite interested in electric cars, because we don't, whilst we have 2 cars, one of them is really just used locally. We use the other one for long journeys, and so electric car makes a reasonable amount of sense. And one of the things that a lot of people go on about electric cars is something called range anxiety. That is, you're going to run out of electricity in the middle of nowhere. You can't do anything about it. And it's an interesting discussion rather than argument I've had with colleagues and things about electric cars, and it's kind of like, why do you expect me to run out of electricity? How often do you run out of petrol? Because people don't tend to run out of petrol, because they look at the gauge and go, I need to fill it up. So why should people not do that with an electric car? You look at the gauge and go, I could do with charging it, and charge it up. Okay, it takes longer, but you get home at night, could do with a charge, plug it in. And I was just thinking, I have had range anxiety, not with an electric car, but with petrol cars, where I've been sort of like on my way to work once, and I've forgotten to fill up. And I'd had a red light on the petrol gauge when I forgot, sort of for 2 or 3 days, and I kept forgetting to fill up, and I've been going, am I going to get there? And didn't. And then more recently I've had one. We've been out in the countryside where petrol stations are few and far between, and suddenly noticed that the red light was on and we're quite low. And of course a lot of modern cars these days give you a range indicator. It's things like 5 miles, and there's not a petrol station within 5 miles, and don't know where there is a petrol station. And then you're turning things like the air conditioning off, and so that you save power on the generator, so you don't take any more petrol than you need. Probably not a lot of difference. And I remember at that time we went sort of 10 miles when after it went to 0 before we found some petrol, and I still to this day do not know how on earth I got there. But that's range anxiety, only with petrol. Jackknife in the truck while parking. Okay, I've jackknifed a truck whilst braking a couple of times. I don't think I've jackknifed it whilst... Well, yeah, I suppose technically it is jackknifing, isn't it? When you're reversing, but that one's a bit easier to get out of than when you do it while you're driving down the road. I wonder how many people, having played Euro Truck Simulator, who are drivers, actually once they get back on the roads, having sort of done a fair bit of Euro Truck, actually understand more about the problems that the truck drivers have, and they'll do things like let them out and now where they wouldn't have done before, or give way to them to let them pull out at junctions and things, or even not go right up to the junction because they can see there's a HGV trying to pull in. I wonder how much it has influenced drivers' opinions. I can't really answer that myself, because for many years I drove a car towing either a trailer or a caravan, which is a similar sort of thing. So I kind of learned from that before I ever got near ETS2, so I've always sort of understood. And when I was 14, I was doing a job back then, and one of the time, part of the job often was going out with an articulated vehicle driver and a big trailer, so you learnt some of what they didn't like firsthand. You've had to coast. I've run out, and I've run out 100 yards from a petrol station. Had to push. It wouldn't coast. Mind you, I was about to say I probably fill up more than I fill up more regularly these days, but I still tend to leave it until I just don't notice it until you get that red light, and sometimes then it becomes an oops. It's still a bit light, just behind. Okay, that's going to get dark, of course, there. Right, yeah, clearly. Right. I made that area just a bit dark. It's an area of wood that took colour a little bit more rapidly than I might like. Or in other words, I probably got just a little bit impatient with it. And just held the tool down a bit more than I should have done. I don't think it ultimately is going to matter, but it's going a little bit blotchy. So we'll have to deal with the blotchiness a little bit later. I am finding it a lot easier with this particular tool to create a much smoother gradient than I was with the other one. And I'm not getting those little, I tend to call them divots, but they're little sort of brown marks. So it's a lot smoother is this tool. Now the base of it isn't quite flat, it's slightly rounded, So I'm feeling it, so I can sort of rock it forwards and back a little bit, and I get a very slightly different profile on the wood. Which is interesting, shall we say. Don't know how to use it just yet. Now, if there's anybody that's watching and that isn't aware of what you're looking at, despite the fact that it there's a hint on the left hand side of the screen, what you are looking at is pyrography. Whilst the literal translation is writing with fire, it's more painting with heat. And the heat affects the wood. It affects the wood by drawing out the sap or the resin from within the wood fibres. The wood isn't 100% dry. Cooking it and leaving it deposited on the surface of the wood. The cooking process turns it brown, different shades. The longer you cook it, or the more heat that's applied, then the browner it gets. So it's there's a lot of skill therefore involved in knowing just how long to do that for. So you can apply more heat either by turning up heat or by using that heat for longer in one place. And that's where the skill comes into pyrography. Or one of the pyrographic skills comes in is understanding that what you can and can't do to get the colours that you want. And that's still not dark enough. Okay. And sometimes, despite the skill levels that I may or may not have, I still can't get the colours I'm after. You can actually also apply, whilst I'm doing this on wood, you can apply pyrography to quite a few other materials as well. Whilst you can do it on paper, if it's thin paper, very quickly you burn, you char the wood, char the paper, and you get holes in it. But you can do very thick paper or cardboard. Can be done as well. You can also do leathers of various animals. That you can create pyrography on leather. It's not necessarily a very pleasant experience though. It smells not very nice when you're doing that. If you ever caught a hair in a candle flame or something like that, the smell that you get from that's what happens when you try and apply pyrography to leather. That sort of smell. Depends just on how it's been tanned and what have you. You can also apply pyrography to bone. So biological substrates mainly. So in theory you can do it to things like dried leaves, but it's like thin paper. They very quickly disintegrate. But bone, ivory of course was a traditional one, which is no longer possible. Ivory is a prohibited substance, so that can't be done anymore. But you can also apply it to things like gourds. Don't know about eggshells. That would be an interesting one to try one of these days, maybe, an eggshell, because it is a biological substance. But I don't know whether it contains any material within the cell that will colour. Potentially it might just be a case of literally burning the eggshell, but might be an interesting one to try. You can try things like gourds and anything like that which dries. So I'm assuming potentially nuts as well would work quite well. In fact, one of these days I might try it because I've got some for carving purposes. So maybe I'll try it on one of those. That's getting a bit darker, but I still want a little bit more. Colour changes in doing this can be quite subtle, and this is one of those that's quite subtle changes, yet it can make a profound effect sometimes. Just a very slight shade change can have quite a dramatic effect sometimes on a picture. Here I am practicing my hand-eye coordination again. For those that haven't seen me do this, what I'm doing is looking at my OBS broadcast window. In other words, looking at what it's sending out. The reason being that the way the camera is, or just the mechanics of the camera, is giving a field of view that looks like you stepped back about 3 or 4 feet as a viewer. And so when I look at a piece at this angle down here, I'm looking a lot closer than this camera is, in terms of I'm seeing quite a narrow range. I can sort of step back and see more of it, but the camera is giving me virtually a full view. It's literally as though I've stepped back about 3 feet, and pictures often, or my pictures often, look different when you step back. 3 or 4 feet does seem to be optimal for my pictures. They always look better when you step back a little bit. Quite a few art forms are like that, though. They're not meant to be viewed extremely closely. They are meant to be viewed sort of from a reasonable standing distance away from the piece. If you think about like newspaper print, for example, if you really look really close, it's just lots of dots. So it was. Don't know if it still is. I don't look at newspapers these days. Your television as well. Lots of dots or lots of coloured bars. If you get really close, you can't see the picture. The further away you get, the better it looks. Fear Reaper, good evening. Welcome to the studio this evening. Nice to see you. Excuse me a little bit. I am just going to reach over and get a towel. I mentioned it was a little warm in the studio, and being over the top of a not a lot of heat comes off this. It's a bit like a candle, but when you're quite close to it, it does kind of warm up a bit. Oh dear, I am lucky. So far, no disconnects. Oh, that's good, Fear Reaper. I'm glad about that. What sort of things do you like to draw? I suspect you've told me before, but please excuse my my memory. all sorts of trouble remembering things sometimes. I certainly really think you should have another go at drawing. Of course, and I'd quite encourage you to do it on stream. I was about to say then I perhaps could watch you, but I suspect that given that you're watching me, you'd probably want to stream around the same time, and therefore I might not get a chance. But I'd love to see more people doing things in creative, and boost the boost the users in this particular section. I mean, pipe dream, but wouldn't it be really nice to get to the point where there's more people in creative and watching creative than there is watching games? You like to get used to your tablet first. Multi-use words. Tablet as in a graphics tablet, or tablet as in a screen that you can draw on, like an iPad or something like that. Anime style. Okay. Anime style actually can be quite hard to draw, because a lot of it is what I'm trying to say is there's no real life reference. You know, I can go get lots of pictures of an elephant. Anime is a relatively limited subset. You're looking at other people's styles, so you have to do it more from memory. I would think it would be a lot harder to do. Graphics tablet. Okay. It does take a little bit of getting used to sort of doing something down here and it changing up there, but yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's you're having, as you say, you're having to get used to a graphics tablet. That's something that everybody who uses one has to do. It certainly wouldn't be a reason for me, that's me, not to stream it, because part of the channel philosophy. I get posh now. Sort of part of the reason for streaming is to sort of show people two things. Show people the art, the process of creation, and make some of these things more widely known. But there is sort of a lot of people that kind of just think, electronic art, for example, or pyrography, or you just run a tool over, or you get a laser to do it. It's done in 10 seconds flat. Or if it's a computer, for some reason they all think, lots of people think, it's the computer does all the work for you. You just go, oh, I want a giraffe, and it draws a giraffe. And they don't realise the levels of skill that you have to. The hand-eye coordination, for example. And so, for me, although I learned that a long time ago, I'd be quite happy to stream it, because it's kind of like, look, guys, this is what's hard. It's like rubbing your head and patting your stomach, or tying your shoelaces with one hand, whilst drinking a cup of tea with the other. It's it's quite a hard thing to do. Or one of my sort of favourite illustrations a little bit is point a TV camera at somebody so they can see the image, webcam, whatever, so they can see the monitor. Then get them to comb the hair. Most people can't do it. because it's reversed, they're used to a mirror, and when they try and do it, it doesn't feel right with the hands, because the hands going the wrong way to get what they see as in the screen, expecting a mirror. And that's a real good sort of illustration for somebody who just doesn't get it, why hand-eye coordination, what you're doing down here, doesn't match what you're seeing, or it has to match what you're seeing, because they can't do, and I'm doing it wrong because it wants to be that way on me. They can't comb their own hair. Yeah, and again, as you say, drawing straight lines. It's I mean, even drawing straight lines sometimes can be quite difficult when you're doing it on paper, and on screen it's even harder because you're not looking at what your hand's doing. It's just practice though, but that's well, I'm making mistakes here. I'm getting little splotches, so I'm not intending to represent the fact that I'm can do this perfectly. I'm learning. Learning to do straight lines actually, because this is sky, so ideally I want to follow straight lines, and I'm colouring in, so I need to get a consistent spacing and things like that. I think anybody who saw you practicing on stream who says has some sort of disparaging comment obviously can't do it themselves. Yes, okay, you can show you what style I mean. Well, that's what that's what style is with Fear Reaper, deciding what level of detail you do things in, how precise you are in joining lines, or things like that, going up to the lines in colour and things like that. So it's that is part of developing a style. But to be honest, you can only develop a style by practice. You like eyes, don't you? The gun is an interesting one. Just the angle and the what seems to be the intent behind it with the red eye. It's an interesting picture. But, yeah, I'm guessing you did those straight lines using some form of tool as well. But there's nothing wrong with that. Don't make the mistake of thinking everything has to be freehand. It doesn't. You use straight line tools when you're drawing. They're a means of speed to do something. It's not always about what you do in terms of the line work, for example. It's about the image itself, what you're trying to portray. And you could sit down and draw a line like that. I mean, you could get a ruler out on a graphics tablet. There's no reason why you can't get a ruler out and just draw down a line of ruler. You'd do that on a piece of paper, so why not on a graphics tablet? And the straight line tools are only just an extension of that. They're just saving you getting the ruler out. So don't be afraid to use things like that. Which I sense you might perhaps be a little bit wary of that. Everything has to be freehand. He doesn't. It really doesn't. Circles. Use a circle tool. Why not? I get something out and draw around it. whether it was paper or even on a graphics tablet. So I've been known to do that on the screen, and I've got a Cintiq. So it's you use the tools that's available to you. You can spend hours doing nice pretty circles, and that's practice to draw circles. So, but why bother when you've got the tools? It's almost a case of people who go on about things like that. It's a case of, well, why do they not get a twig, stick it in a fire, and carbonize the end to make a well, it'd be it's not a graphite pencil, but it's a charcoal pencil to do a picture on. Why do they go and buy a pencil? Why use a pencil? They're using a tool. So these people who say you can't use a circle tool, or you ask them, why are they using a pencil? Why aren't they going out there cutting a tree twig down, rubbing sticks together to create the fire and then charring the end? The only thing I don't understand about the person though is the teeth. I understand the teeth. It's the split of them that I don't quite follow. I can understand the line. I just don't quite follow the step on them. But apart from that, it's a good picture. You're focusing on the eyes again. 84 Guy, good evening. Welcome to the studio this evening. Perfect lines, imperfect lines. It's a style. You look at some of the manga stuff. They're perfect lines. But I mean, if you want to do that, you can use some of the drawing programs will create imperfect lines for you. They'll vary the width of the line, and you can always, with some of the drawing tools, turn on pressure sensitivity on line width. So because you won't keep a perfect line. I suppose if you're using a line tool, then what you want is to draw using a line that's got an inherent variability into it. And I know what's the current tool that a lot of people are using for manga? I can't remember the application, but I do know that's got in it tools that will do things like variations of lines, just like it was done with a pencil or something like that. No, to be honest, on that particular picture, I think if you had got an imperfect gun, it probably wouldn't have had the same impact. But there again, it's different. And whilst manga is Japanese style, manga doesn't have to be Japanese. That's its origination. But Westernize it. That could be your style. To be honest, if someone said to me the lines are too perfect, I would be asking him why. Not just don't accept it if somebody just says things like that. If it's a world-renowned manga artist who's saying the lines are too perfect, I'd still ask why, but I'd believe him more, than just any other random, just any random person that says it. Right. I shall carry on with this a little bit. Yeah, we're encouraging Fear Reaper to start drawing again, 84 guy, and I'm also encouraging him to stream it, but yeah, that's personal preference, of course. So, did anybody watch the Dovetail stream earlier this evening with the turbine-powered train that they were previewing? I'm trying to remember what it was called. GT3 or something like that. An interesting model. It's interesting how you kind of learn things from the internet and from YouTube and things. There's one YouTuber I watch called Agent Z. He's actually a turbine mechanic. Don't want to disparage him, but he works on turbine engines, on turbines, gas generators, things like that. It's a jet engine is it's only a jet engine when it's pushing. So things like the train, it's a gas generator driving a turbine. Odd terminology. Okay, they sometimes do a special stream at 5 o'clock UK time, and they did tonight. The VOD's there, and it'll be on YouTube as well. But it was an interesting model, an interesting thing to listen to as well. A jet engine. I'm doing it now. A jet turbine, power turbine. Anyway, gas generator. Oh, DeviantArt won't let me look at that one, Fear Reaper. No, I don't have a DeviantArt account, so I can't tell it I'm old enough. It wants to protect me, yeah. Although I will say, having not seen it, I'm not a great one for gory art, as some people are. Okay, I don't think that one's. I don't think that one's particularly any worse than the other one, which was a similar sort of style. Yeah, I don't see it. I agree, 84 guy. Well, I wouldn't really know, to be honest. I mean, it's kind of like just, you can almost get that with a cartoon. I'll say a cartoon grimace, where the lips come really back off the gums. So, Akenis, good evening. Welcome to the studio. This evening we are we're being art critics on Fear Reaper 7 tonight. He's showing some of his previous artworks. I don't think that's particularly any. I don't think that's a bad image of any kind. You do like the eyes, though, don't you? You do like to put the emphasis on the eyes, and use those colours to signify the emotion. I suppose you could see, as you said, that it's sort of injury damage, I suppose, but with it being just white outline mark, say black outlined art in that area, it doesn't show up in that sort of way. It actually does kind of look like that grimace. Is that your image as well, Fear Reaper? And by that, I realise it's a 3D modelled coffee mug, and if you've done the modelling, that's quite nice modelling, is that? Together with all the rendering. Yeah, because it's just taken me a little while to work out, but it is rendering the blue background on the mug as well, the blue reflection that you'd expect. But is the Reaper? I'm assuming the Reaper is also your image. Well, I quite like that. It is a sort of it's quite a commercial looking mug, is that? Yeah. Maybe you ought to think about actually putting that image actually on a mug, a real mug, and selling them. It's quite a nice sort of image. Actually, there's a fair few sites, isn't there, that'll do that. I don't know if Spreadshirt will do it, but there's a few of that sort of thing where you can just upload the image and let people buy it on things like mugs and things. Eddie, I believe you were saying that the E3 stuff has sort of finished this. Was it yesterday? On Twitch. Because if that's correct, it's a kind of coincidence that it's 9:30, and I've been streaming continuously since I started. Now, of course, having said that, Murphy walks in and it's going to go down, but yeah. Okay, I've got a light patch through there. It still isn't quite as dark as... That is, it's being represented differently. It really is. Ah, it's angle dependent. Now look at that. The left hand side now looks darker than the right until I do that and it switches. That explains why I'm not seeing it quite the same. And that's interesting. No, I didn't catch that. I think you mentioned... Well, didn't you I think you may have mentioned it actually last night, but I really can't remember, Rady. And I didn't catch the full stream today. I think you've been streaming for about half an hour before I joined today. And actually, I was about to say I couldn't chat anyway because the iPad just wouldn't connect to chat. But there again, I brought it up on the Works PC as well, so I could have done, but I was concentrating on a particular sort of interesting problem. So I'm afraid you were sort of slightly peripheral today. Nice weave, by the way. That red and gold on the Kings, I think it was. I think I'd be always trying to lay, if it was on me, I'd be always trying to lay the rings inside each other. Oh, a random stream, yeah. I was about to say I haven't had that until me. I did have it when, of course, they reset everybody's stream key a while ago when they had the break in. Luckily, I read the message before I started trying to stream, so I didn't get caught out. But yeah, I can imagine that's quite frustrating. There's nothing wrong, but it doesn't work. It's one of those things that you think can't possibly, it can't be that, not changed it, therefore it must be okay. What they ought to perhaps do for something like that is put I don't know, put up a banner on your when you logged in somehow that says a stream key changed, and then once you've used the key to stream, it takes it away. I mean, something like that would be nice and friendly to stop you tearing your hair out, because I can imagine you're going to be going through OBS or XSplit and trying to work out why it won't connect, because it probably won't tell you. Is your router working? Have I got a connection to Twitch and all this sort of stuff? Red and silver. Yeah, red. I dare say red and black. Red and silver. I was watching, honest, because you did the king. You'd done something before it, which I didn't catch. Oh, you were doing the Mobius before it. You'd run out of rings, the adjoining rings. You did the Kings, and then you did a red in some colour bead, red beads, which you dropped one on the floor and it didn't smash. Key ring, key fob. I think I'd call them key fobs myself, even though it's got the ring on it. Mobius Rosetta. Yeah. Ooh! Oh dear. Oh dear, Reese. Oh, paste your string key. Yeah. Oh dear. Oh, that's... I've nearly done that. Well, I've nearly done that in the past with things like passwords, not streaming, but in other environments. Because I used to keep all my passwords in a file, but now I actually use an encryption program to do that, and it empties the keyboard, it empties the paste buffer after 10 seconds, so I don't have that problem anymore. But yeah. It's I wouldn't call them keychains. I definitely wouldn't call them keychains. I'd kind of be with you. I mean, that's kind of like, you know, people are saying that's wrong. It's a bit like the Americans with the hoods and the bonnets and the boots and you know, the pavement and things like that. You know, it's just different countries call things different things. But I kind of agree with you. The keychain is the chain that you put keys on. Don't know about key rings is an odd one to me. I'm not sure. I'd certainly call the thing on its own without the ring on the end a key fob. And a few people would call a fob a flat piece of leather with you know, some sort of emblem on it, I guess. But you know, fob watches are quite wide things, so I'd call it a key fob. But a keychain, sorry, a key ring, I don't know whether I'd count that as just the ring on the end or quite what, but yeah, closer to key ring, I think, than keychain for me. Oh yeah, no, you don't want anybody streaming things on your channel. You are not in control of, Fear Reaper. There would quite easily people that would go on and do some really nasty stuff like that. If you ever get even the slightest hint that somebody may have come across your stream key, change it. It's not worth it. Even if you end up having to spend sort of half an hour or whatever changing in whatever you're streaming from, it is definitely worth changing it. This area around here is too bright, so that is something that we're going to need to darken off a little bit. I'm quite liking this tip. I've changed the tip, Eddie. This one is longer rather than wider, so I can sort of use it in for the same sort of, you know, larger area filling. I just have to do it in a different motion. But this one's a lot more regularly heated. Now if you can just see the colour there. I'll zoom in a bit when I can find my mouse cursor. There we go. You see the heat, the blue pattern there is basically where the majority of the heat is created, guys. For those of you that don't know what you're looking at, and the sort of copper looking area. Now they're not. I don't actually know what produces them, but as you heat metal, you get a bluing effect in the hottest areas, and you get sort of oranges and cooler colours in. Like, well, red through purple as you go through the spectrum, basically, and those colours are virtually permanent, but there's more of a consistent colour across the tip of this. It's a relatively useful way, which I only realised last night, of just seeing what the heating profile is on a tip. Anyway, I shall zoom back out and back onto the artwork. Yeah, oh I know it does. I mean I don't know what it is, but if I was dual streaming, for example, then it would be on a splitter server somewhere, and I'd have to go in, shut the streams down, go into text files, change the stream key, fire up the server again, and then reconnect and what have you. So for some people, it's potentially more complicated than others, but it's definitely worth doing. Definitely worth doing. Yeah, despite the fact we've got sunlight on this, in fact the whole shading is a little bit off. I think I want more darkness around here. Now that I've got the dark background in, this looks really too white. I think this sort of darkness needs to continue around a little bit, and then this, which is a little bit bright, will need toning down a little bit. It's suddenly gone quiet in chat. Has everybody gone out to start changing the stream keys? Now at some point I'm going to put some texture on here, a little bit of texture, in terms of the deeper skin crevices, just to make it look a little bit more sort of elephant-like. It's not bad as it is. I mean, it is an interpretation of it. I am pondering whether actually to do that, or whether just to hint at it in a few places like this. Not quite decided yet. It's one of those things that if I do it, I've got to do lots of it, so to speak. If I don't do it, and if I do it, and it doesn't look right, then I'm stuffed. If I don't do it and I think it looks all right before I do it, then before I start, then I've just just ruined the piece. If I think it doesn't look right without it, then it's nothing lost, nothing gained. It's kind of, if I'm going to have to do it, I'm going to have to do it, but. Because I can just use, I call them tooling marks, but things like these areas just here where I just happen to have got a line, and things like up here we've got, well, you're not seeing it so much as I am here, but there are marks which are very like the creases in the elephant skin, just because that's just the way in which, as I was moving the tool, I just got a slightly darker edge, and that's what's happened across here as well, before I put the shadow in and emphasize that. So so I may just sort of do that sort of work rather than putting full dark creases in. And that may be an element of chickening out a little bit in of actually doing it. Oh, no, no. Actually, I have suspected half of you gone and were watching that stream. Because he must have gone live by now. And you, sometimes he's a bit late once he's done a dovetail stream. Don't think I've heard him go live just yet. Okay. More of a shadow coming in. Probably want it a little bit more, especially just up over here. Don't quite know why I think I want it darker. It just strikes me as it's not quite right yet. I don't know if that's some sort of artistic impression or intuition or something like that, or whether I'm just making it up as I go along. Not consciously, by the way, making it up as I go along, but it could well just be my brain trying to supply an explanation for what it's subliminally thinking about. Yeah, the trunk is much too light, I think, for the fact that we're talking about sunset. You know, you can see the darkness in the background. The whole of this area needs darkening down anyway. I mean, at the moment, you get a bit of reflection off it, I guess, even at sunset. I think I'd, if I was doing this with colour, I'd definitely be sort of injecting a little bit of red into whatever colour I'm doing here. Possibly brown if I'm talking about brown soil. But oh, he's live, is he? Oh, okay. He's doing just one scenario, I think, tonight. Then he's going. Then he's going to do some flight sim. In doing this, I'm starting off the edge. I'm not trying to match the edge. I don't particularly need to do that, and I tend to be leaving lighter marks if I did right against the edge. It's really hard to get a perfect match if you start trying to just join from an edge. If you can start off the edge, it's a lot easier to make sure you get a full. Yeah, you fill in all the tiny gaps. And you got to remember to start from various different places, otherwise you'll end up with a line where you start from as well. So I'm not starting in a quarter of an inch off every time. I'm going from all sorts of distances. That way, although I am colouring around here a little bit, I am also spreading it out so I don't get that line. Yeah, And that's the elephant trunk coming around there. First of all, I need to just mark where that is, and then I need to darken this just slightly against there so that we get the highlight on this side of it, which is the trunk in front. Okay, it's starting to look a bit better to me. I know I've got to do the ear and the head. That needs some, definitely needs some colouring. It's much too bright for what I think is appropriate here. And we've definitely got something to do on this base level here. Need to put something like grass in. Turn these colours down a little bit. Oh, it's been a little while since you've watched AD, I guess. Watched Matt AD, I guess. I think he's had that for... Actually, he first had that when he started, which was a couple of weeks ago now, when he first demoed his setup. He couldn't quite get it working quite right the first few times, and it occasionally stops working now. But it's a fascinating thing to watch, is that map display, especially when they're doing some of the older lines that no longer exist, because you can actually, you can still see the track beds that he's following even though there's no track there, which I find fascinating to watch. It's a really clever idea, though, to show the map. Okay. Occasionally it crashes and it'll turn it off. Maybe that's what's happened last time you were on. I know he couldn't get it working the other night, so he turned it off. Oh, he didn't display it anyway. Tell you what, I'm getting tired. And tell that because I'm not talking. So what I'm going to do is leave it for tonight, I think. I'll put that tool away to one side. We got a reasonable amount done, especially considering I'm working with a brand new tool, which I'm quite pleased with. It's doing quite a nice job. Still got to get used to it, but it's doing a nice job. I've got a lot smoother. Thank you. Got a lot smoother sky now around here. Trunk still strikes me as being a bit too bright. Probably need to darken this off around here a bit more, just because of the angle of the sunlight is going to be right on the front here. So probably what I do, probably want a slightly brighter area, but this darkening off. Certainly the top of the head is much too bright. Maybe slightly lighter than this just because of the angles, but it wants to be around this sort of colour up here, as does the ear. Now the ear will cause me a little bit of a problem then, because it will match the background, so I may again have to just darken off around here and maybe extend this darkness up a touch, but not sure about that. Or what I may actually do is, because that is an ear but it's not adding anything, I may actually lose that, and I think I probably will. It's his right ear, it's the edge of the right ear, but I think I might actually lose it. I don't think it's adding any value, so I think that's probably the best thing. Lose that, and then I can colour around here. I gotta watch the contrast with the background, so I either stay lighter than it, which I think I probably will do, judging by sort of the colours, but the face does need to darken. And then for the background on the ground, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. I'm kind of thinking of using like long grass, but then that's going to involve me in not pyrographing the grass, but pyrographing the space between the grass, because the grass will show up lighter, the shadow will be behind it, so that could be interesting. Across at the back it'll be just fairly darkish and murky. I won't need to do grass that far back, you just wouldn't see it. It's going to be in the mid, so around here is where you'll start to see the grass, you'll hint at bits around here, possibly around the legs of the giraffe. But as we get down to the front here, we're going to have to be a little bit more explicit. And I suspect actually we may get darker as we come this way. Looking at a couple of reference pictures, because of the way you see distance, that's probably going to be lighter and work its way to a dark foreground here. So fairly dark, maybe sort of really highlighting the grass, long grass, so it really stands out, sort of, I won't say almost white, but really stands out with quite a dark background in this area here. But I don't know at this stage. I don't know what to do, and I don't know how I'll do it. So you and I are going to learn how to do it at the same time, and I'll hopefully explain what it is I'm doing. But anyway, I think that, yes, will do for tonight. I'm going to get a cream bun, I think, or a cream cake. For those of you in America, cream cake. Cake with confectioner's cream in it. and a cup of tea, or a cold drink, I think, maybe some cold fizzy water. Thank you all for watching. If of course there's anybody watching that isn't following me, I would encourage you to do so. You're also welcome, and I encourage you to follow me also on Twitter at Zaragonart. And if you just want to try and catch me tomorrow, you can do so. 8 PM UK time, 1900 hours GMT, or almost exactly 2 hours earlier than the current time, but tomorrow. Don't think I'll be on in the afternoon, so it'll just be an evening stream tomorrow. And may start a bit earlier, don't know, but 8 PM I should be on, thereabouts. Thank you all. Hope to see you again. Bye bye.